they were active, and it actually kind of solidified the overall big point that we're going to make here before we get into the details of what the Hurricanes did this weekend with the opening of free agency, if you could keep up with it with Twitter being broken. Sometimes organizations, coaches, general managers, owners will tell you exactly what they're doing. And it's just up to us to actually listen to what they're saying. I used to say this about Roy Williams all the time. I would say this about Mike Krzyzewski all the time. They're telling you. There's no games being played. They're straight up telling you what they're doing. And I feel like maybe this is finally the offseason where people kind of, the light goes on for what the Carolina Hurricanes do. They are not a trade deadline team. They are an offseason team. The moves they make for the deadline happen now. That's how they remake their team. And they want to keep as perennial favorites in their division, Stanley Cup favorites, at least odds-on favorites. And the moves they made this weekend, Joe, just kind of solidified that point even further. You thought last year they reconfigured their lineup to get better in certain spots. They're doing that here, and they're not done. That's the other thing. They're clearly not done.
Yeah, I kind of feel stupid.
Okay.
For all of those conversations. Because I feel like you're just subtweeting me in real life. But the truth of the matter is sometimes it does take.
Oh, I'm guilty of that too, man.
Sometimes it does take like for you to look at it and then go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Because remember, you're right. They plainly said to us, we are signing Max Pacioretty right now because we will then treat it as a deadline acquisition. But we can't sit here and be disciples of the Rod culture and not understand that the Rod culture does take some time. There's an acclimation process. So for the Canes and what they want to do, they'd rather add people now, get them here for those off-season workouts and see how hard the team works. That's step number one, right?
Yeah.
Then you try to figure out, well, how well do they play together? How do the parts fit together, right? That's all things you need to do preseason and the early season. And I think that's a testament to what they've done. And it's also a testament to the point that Don Waddell is about to make about what this franchise has become.
Yeah, it is interesting. Waddell met with the media on, what was it, Saturday at the opening of free agency.
Oh, and for the point of process, if you missed the news this weekend, they added Dmitry Orlov, a defenseman, 31 years old, $7.75 million. Obviously, that's not chump change. That's a significant investment.
The win on that is term. It's only 2 years. So the average annual value is what, 7.75 per year. But again, 2 years, that's where the difference is. And I like that.
But that's not adding Shane Gostisbehere at the deadline. That's not hoping that's adding a dude.
Yes.
And Michael Bunting, left winger, $4.5 million, 27 years old, just had tremendous success in Toronto. Also in the top 10 in the NHL in penalty minutes, where you'll significantly not find a Carolina Hurricane. So we'll see what that means. I
believe the term that I saw on the internet a bunch was adds a little sandpaper to the Carolina Hurricanes, which is something that they need. But to your point, and what Waddell was saying over the weekend is that, and this is something that we as people who cover the Canes and also fans of the Canes have to process too. Things have changed, and how the Canes go about their offseason has reflected that.
Things have changed here. We used to chase players, have to overpay players, and we've become a destination place, and we're getting those calls first, as some teams are, and it's nice to be in that position to have an opportunity to make your team better. And I've always said my job as a general manager is to make our team better if we can, and we felt the additions today certainly put us in a different spot moving forward.
So that's Don Waddell, president, general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, so winning clearly helps. That's where the change comes in. The Canes were sometimes we'll make the playoffs and go on a nice run, and then we'll go 5 years without making the playoffs, kind of a thing. And then there's the idea of the market not being a traditional hockey market, although anybody who's come through here will always tell you they love it here. The golf helps. So other than the winning, what's the biggest factor as to what makes this area, a place that Canes or people want to be Canes? They want to come here and be part of the organization. I mean, do I have to spell it out for you? It's Rod Brind'Amour. I mean, what did Rod tell us at the end of the season when we were talking about some off-season moves? What did he say?
And I was worried about this with Jesper Fast.
Yeah.
They did re-sign Jesper Fast at slightly more money, $3 million, only a minor raise there.
Do you think you could have gotten more money somewhere else?
I absolutely do, particularly after the season that they had. And Rod had said to us, every year we'll lose a guy who can go out and get more. Now, he didn't say Nino Niederreiter specifically, but and maybe it was Tony DeAngelo too. He says every year we lose a guy. They sign for more money, and it's not hard feelings. It's just, hey, man, and he said specifically, I get it. I was in their position.
Mhm.
I wanted to make more money too.
Mhm.
He goes, but invariably after a month, I'll get a call from that player and say, hey man, wish I was still there. Like,
Well,
this is where I want to be.
Waddell talked about that.
Certainly, it's the culture that Rod's built, and winning comes into it. But I think more importantly, the fans have come back, and this place we've all experienced it the last few years in the playoffs, and this year regular season we had 33 sellouts. The playoffs, it's a different mindset coming in this building, not only as a player but for our fans. And players talk about it all the time. It's the loudest, visiting players, coaches, general managers have told me, it's the loudest building in the league. And, it's a great atmosphere. So it's a combination of all those things. Great area to live in. The Triangle area is a great living environment. We got a lot of good things going for us.
Again, that's Don Waddell, president, general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, on what has changed. Rod Brind'Amour has a lot to do with that. Winning is one thing, but that culture that culture gets overused a lot in sports to the point where it's
because everybody thinks they have
everybody's
culture.
got the culture.
I have bad news for you. Not everybody has culture.
Rod does.
He does.
Straight up. Rod does. And you're seeing that pay off with some of their offseason moves. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes aren't done. You can kind of get a general sense of what they want to do, but they got too many defensemen. Adding Orlov to this mix and the impending Tony DeAngelo deal indicates, and the fact that the NHL insiders, whether it's Elliot Friedman or Pierre LeBrun or whoever you follow on social media, keeps talking about Erik Karlsson being in the mix. Okay, well, what are we doing here? This is where Brett Pesce comes into play. And one thing that the Canes have done under Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, is they have a very clear idea of what they think you're worth.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're honest about that.
And I'm not saying it as a knock. If anything, you should actually appreciate.
That's part of the culture, by the way.
Yes. This is what we think you're worth. You're more than welcome to go do something else. I think that actually played out with the goalie situation. Okay. Which we'll get to in a second. But I wanted to focus on, all right, they're clearly not done. Where does Pesce roll into this? And it feels like Pesce, with 1 year left on his contract, is going to be used as some sort of offseason asset to bring in another top goal scorer, or this Karlsson deal that continues to percolate for the Carolina Hurricanes. And this is where Tony DeAngelo's part of it makes sense, because they'd be getting him at an extreme discount to fulfill a need, which would be something on the power play, even though, as we know, he got a little squirrely there in the postseason. All right, so where's the Tony DeAngelo situation? Waddell was asked about that over the weekend.
The Philly have a deal in principle. It just can't be executed until a certain date. We're not sure yet. It's if you add good pieces, you always say, how are you going to make it fit? But we got a lot going on this year with contracts and other things, potential other opportunities maybe for trade still. So the good thing is it's July 1st. It's not opening night, October, whatever, 10th or 11th. So we got some time to figure this out. And again, when you get presented with good players, it's something that I feel you have to do.
Yeah, that's Don Waddell, president, general manager.
I love to tell my kids, who don't like math, by the way. So my dad taught math for 41 years.
Yeah.
I enjoy math. I enjoy a spreadsheet. I love to tell them, do you know why you should like math? Because there's an actual answer to every problem.
Yes.
Like, you can actually solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know how rare that is in actual real life? It's very rare.
Yes.
Right? But I can't help but think of our conversation with Tom Dundon when he was talking about, I don't do anything when it's not in my advantage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So here, I know you're not agnostic towards the numbers, but you don't like wrap your arms around them. They're not like your thing, right?
No, there's a reason why you're the business guy in this relationship.
Well, yeah,
and I am the I'm the AV club over here.
Here are the 4 players they re-signed. You ready for these lines to add up?
Sure.
So they re-signed Stahl, they re-signed Fast, they re-signed Ronta, they re-signed Freddie. Okay. All but Fast are making less money next year. So the savings that they came from those 4 players, which includes the plus $600,000 for Fast, is $4.85 million. Well, would you look at that? Look at what they spent to get Michael Bunting. 4.5. Wow, that's really weird.
Oh, okay.
To your point about how they identify a player. And listen, while we've had conversations with all of these principals involved, we
Mhm.
have not ever specifically talked contracts with these guys.
No, there's no point.
But
They're not
we-
going to tell you anything.
But we understand what they do.
Mhm.
So I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts what happened with Brett Pesci. They told him, we think you're worth 7.5.
Mhm.
And he said, I think I'm worth more. Shouts to Kenneth at the Butcher's Market. Big Canes fan.
Yeah.
When we went to see him for the meet,
Yeah.
he goes, oh man, Pesci's got a new agent. He's going to want a new deal. He's
Sure
going to want
does.
this. He's going to want that. And I'm like, how do you know all this stuff? And then I was like, oh, you're probably right.
Mhm.
So Pesci made 4 this year. He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
So he's looking for a deal.
Yeah.
And as he rightfully
He
should. He has
should.
earned the
He
deal
should.
that is coming to him. But the Canes said to him, likely, we think you're worth 7 or
Mhm.
7.5. And he said, I'm good.
Now he's an asset.
And look at that number that Orlov has.
Weird.
Oh, 7.5, right around 7.5.
7.75, yeah.
So like these guys, they move the chess pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They tell the story. They know the ending to the story.
Mm-hmm.
They just got to fill in the pieces as they go along.
Well, and that kind of was evident in the goalie situation. Once I saw that Ronta was signing for a 1-year deal at that rate, I think it was at 1.5 million. I
Mhm.
went, huh? Are they going to bring them all back? And then sure enough, the Freddie Anderson deal comes out and he's taking a little bit less money.
Yeah.
And again, that gets back to he likes it here. Clearly,
They're saving a little bit more than $2 million and bringing those two guys back.
And the only wrinkle there, and Waddell addressed this a little bit over the weekend. The only wrinkle there is what are you doing with Kochetkov? All right, the young goalie that people identify, and we were included in this. We were in on Kochetkov earlier this past season and thinking, all right, just hand the reins over to the young Russian. But goalies are voodoo, and you don't want to rush it. And my curiosity with them is that they don't have an affiliate right now.
Yeah.
so I'm not. Waddell kind of alluded to the fact that they would try to make it work where they would have 3 goalies. But if Ronta and Anderson are doing what they've been doing in the regular season, well, then it's entirely possible that Kochetkov could be dusty, a little rusty when it's all said and done. So that's the one remaining thing that I'm curious about. Waddell said it wouldn't be a problem to find somewhere to put Kochetkov in the minors, even without affiliation. He'll find a place to play. But whatever. Waddell says it's, what's today's date? July 3rd. So there's still plenty of time to figure all this stuff out with goalies. I like the fact that they were able to bring them all back. That's just one intriguing wrinkle. And as we're talking about money, there's one other big chess piece that they need to figure out, and that's Sebastian Aho, who everybody's identified as the next captain of this team. They've been optimistic. We talked to Tom Dundon. He said straight up this deal is going to happen. So here's Don Waddell on the current status of the Aho deal.
We're talking. We've had great discussions actually, and met with the agent and Jerry Johansson in Nashville for the draft, and we said let's get through the next few days. He had a lot of clients that were unrestricted free agents, and obviously we were pretty busy. So I think in the next couple of days we'll pick that back up and see where if we can come to a final landing spot.
So there you go. There's Waddell on the Aho extension, which should be happening at some point here soon.
Just to go back to the goalie.
Yeah.
Workload from last year, 34 games for Freddie, 27 for Ronta, 24 for Kochetkov, or as Don likes to say,
Kochetkov. I'm guessing we're going to see more of the same in that regard.
I had a lot of questions about Freddie going into the playoffs last year. He answered all of them.